Well, welcome to the Nobleshire of Progressive Discussion. Today, I've got the pleasure of speaking to a band that I've been following for quite some time now. Their name is Edensong, and this is going to be my very first ever roadshow version of the Nobleshire of Progressive Discussion. We're over in British Columbia, and so the background that you're looking at is not my normal, you know, posters and uh, stuff. But yeah, we're up here in BC, the little town called Chilliwack, which is beautiful. If you get a chance, definitely check this out. It's in this area that I'm in here is District 1881, and it looks like something out of 1881. But again, this show is about a road show, which is interesting because Eden Song's album is Our Road to Dust. That's their latest album from Laser Edge label. It was released at the beginning of May. And today we're going to be talking to James Byron Schoen. I hope I'm saying it right. Yes.
Perfect.
And he is both guitarist and lead singer, but he's going to also mention that he splits those lead singing duties with another rising star in the band. So welcome, James. And did you want to say something to kick things off here?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. The Noble Shire is looking very pleasant today, so glad to be here. The Noble Shire for me is just a blurred background, but do what we can. Very happy to be here and answering some questions on the album.
All right. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about the Garden of Years, which is an absolutely brilliant album. That was their last one from 2016. If you haven't heard that, please go back and get that one, as well as the new one here. But just real briefly, it is mostly one huge uh, voyage, the years of the Garden of Years, eight uh, parts to a symphony, and it's the symphony is over 60 minutes with it, two extra cuts, if I'm right, two extra songs. But talk just a little bit about the highlights of that and how well it was received, because I know I loved it, but there are some other people that also.
Yeah, I mean that album is very near and dear to my heart, and sort of what comes out of like zero compromises over a period of almost a decade. So the title "Years in the Garden of Years" is something that we started out with when we started writing that album. It actually came to me in a dream,
Oh,
and uh, yeah, it was the title of a Dream Theater album in my dream. And I'm like, oh, well, it's not really the title of a Dream Theater album. It sounds interesting, so I might as well take that. It like, fit the concept. We wanted to
yeah.
do an album on the concept of time. So, yeah, it just sort of like very nicely fit with the theme and inspired. Yeah, I don't know. We always start with the title first, or at least traditionally we've started with the title first. Which is interesting. But yeah, that was an album of following the process precisely as sort of like I wanted to. There were zero sacrifices. There were zero compromises. There was a lot of, band collaboration. There's a lot of like seed material came from all members of the band, but I had a very specific process that I wanted to follow, and it was obsessive, and it was like, something that really took such an inordinate amount of time to craft that record. And I think that yeah, I mean I'm very proud of the result,
Good.
but it was very like labored over, and I think in the end we all felt very exhausted. I think there was a lot of frustration in the process and how sort of nitpicky it was, and we almost we demoed most of the we demoed almost the entire album very elaborately beforehand with like all of the like parts worked out, and then
Yep.
after that we got to like record the album for real and like took all those demos and had to like recreate them obsessively. It was yeah, so I guess that to say that when we started out with the new one, we wanted to do not that. We wanted to have something that felt more manageable, that was a little less conceptual, a little more introspective, and it's still progressive rock, but it's I guess it's a different kind, and it's like a little yeah, I don't want to say straight ahead in a way, but it's a more personal. The new one, Our Road to Dust, is a more introspective, personal record and like less based on a concept, and certainly um was easier to get out into the world. It was there were hiccups. It also took a lot of time, but it was not the same type of labored over experience that Years in the Garden of Years was. And I'm very proud of both of these records, and yeah, as I was about with the debut album, The Fruit Fallen. I think they're all a labor of love, and I learn a lot about myself and music in the process of making them. And yeah, it's a journey, and I'm and what's cool is like I'm ready to make the next one now, like, and I could not say that about the time when I stopped when we stopped the touring cycle for Years in the Garden of Years. I was not really ready, but this, I can walk off of this album and feel like, wow, that was exciting, let's do it again, you know?
That might partially explain why it took so long for this one. You needed some more time off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, speaking
Um,
of taking things on the road, you're up at the Terra Incognita festival up in Quebec last weekend. Tell us a little bit about that. How was the album received? Did you play mostly, or this album, the new album, front to back, or did you also include some of the other stuff? And how did the whole
yeah,
experience
so we love it up there. This is now our fourth time playing on that stage and our third time playing as part of the Terra Incognita Festival. I hope it's a tradition that can continue. But it's yeah, it's just a great city. It's a great group of like, really passionate progressive rock fans. And I don't know, just as a band, it's like the platonic ideal of like a prog show, like to be able to present a music in such like a observant audience and receptive audience, and it's really great. So yeah, I think things we were very happy with how things went. I think glad we worked out some of the kinks like earlier in the previous week with our album release show, which was also a ton of fun, but a little looser. So we worked out some of the musical um issues ahead of the Quebec show. I think the band walked away very happy, both with the reception and just the like fun of the festival, and also just like our own happy with our own performance there. But yeah, we love it up there. It's a great culture for progressive rock. And you had asked me
Canada
something
is
else
amazing.
about the festival. Yeah, it was cool.
Canada is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, we love
indeed.
it. Yeah. Now I joked on Facebook, and I'm not joked, but I kind of threw out there. It'd be great to get you together with Moon Letters. And has anything developed, or I really hope so. But I mean, if not, I understand.
Yeah, I mean not yet. I mean that would be fantastic. I mean
Have
it's
you guys
interesting
made
because like
contact?
not yet. I
Okay.
think like minimally, I think we follow each other on Facebook, but yeah, there are a number of bands and there are a number of opportunities that we want to start looking into. I was very sort of um it's a lot. We all have like young children and families and stuff, and I didn't want to overcommit ourselves as we try to like get back into playing. I purposely wanted to do two shows that felt very attainable to us, that we didn't need to go, that we already had like pre-existing relationships to set up. We did not have to like go and hunt for gigs and like have to like build up audiences from scratch and any of that. So there were two shows that I knew we wanted to do um for this album, and then after that it was sort of a mystery. I haven't had the like mental bandwidth to do that prior to releasing the album, just because like it was just a lot of
You're busy. Yeah.
work. Yeah, exactly, like putting together, getting the band back into playing shape for one, but also promoting a new record. But now I am 100% wanting to play more, and I think now I'm yeah, I mean, you may have seen my Facebook post the other day, just like wanting to put some feelers out there into the universe and see what opportunities may exist, and yeah, and follow up on some leads and make some shows happen over the next year or two.
Well, my
um
hope is
yeah,
that it'd be
see.
reciprocal. I mean, they could come play in your area, and then obviously you would come out here and play with them. It'd be wonderful.
Yeah,
They're
I
great
mean,
people,
we would love
very,
to do it.
very good people, and I know you are as well. But in the music, you know, the fans are going to just love hearing both of their albums because they have a brand new album as well, and it's all heavy duty, old school. No, I don't want to say that because that people, I'm not going to get that out. No, it's definitely a modern version, as Ian said.
Yeah,
It's a modern version of old school prog. It's very up to date. Both albums, both Moonletters and you guys. And it would just, oh my God, I would love to see that show. But I'm not the
yeah.
only one. I know there's a lot of people that love to see
Yeah, I've
it.
been hearing a lot about them, and I really need to like dive into their catalog because the clips that I've heard sound really fantastic. So,
Well,
will
but
definitely
you
be.
too.
I
I mean,
promise you, it's a lead I'll follow up on.
yeah, but together you would be awesome. And maybe you played on their, live, during a live show, and Michael maybe jumped in and sang. It would just be really cool to see all you guys together. Anyway,
For
I love
sure.
collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything
Likewise.
I can do to help it. We want to build Prague. I mean, there's just not enough good stuff like the two you guys are making or the two bands are making, and we need to keep it going from a fan's perspective, but also from your own perspective. So hopefully all that comes
Yeah.
together. All right, let's talk about your album. Um, you you came out of nowhere, and it was kind of nice, but it was like, all of a sudden here's Edensong, and I'm like, oh really, excellent. And sometimes that's the best way for it to happen. There's no planning as far as the marketing part, and you just boom, you guys sent it to me right away. Thank you for that. And oh my god, every note on this album is worth listening to. And I almost skipped a question here real quick. Tell everyone, we just talked about it, but where are you guys based in New York?
Oh yeah. We are based in New York. Well, I'm in Manhattan. Yeah, and the band is sort of on all sides of the city. There's another guy in the city, and then out on Long Island, and then up in Connecticut. So, yeah, New York City would be the home base. We tend to practice here.
Okay. And then one other question that, I mean, you tell me what you want to tell me, or, there, um, I don't know how to say this right. You were in discussion with Ian about possibly playing on the album, and the time just didn't work out right. Or if you don't want to mention anything about it,
Oh yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah, so Ian Anderson was like very so We had gotten a copy of Years in the Garden of Years through Ian's publicist to him, and I had almost forgotten about it. And then one day woke up to an email, and sort of as the first thing I read in the morning. I'm still,
Yeah,
6 in the morning. I'm sort of like still waking up, and I see this. I'm like, who is this talking about
it
something? I
can't
think
be
it's
real.
related to the album. And then I like saw the uh you know the signature, he signed it IA, or yeah, IA himself, or yeah, and I'm like, what IA? Oh, holy shit, that's
Yeah.
Ian Anderson.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we
Good morning.
corresponded back and forth, you know, a few times around that period of time, and then we were doing some playing in the UK, and talked to him a little bit around then, and yeah, I had asked him if he would consider playing on the upcoming record, to which he was, fairly enthusiastic. Wanted us to send the music and everything, and we talked about exchanging files and stuff. But I mean, this is the big casualty of taking 8 years to do an album, right? It's like by the time we had weathered like the personal stuff
COVID.
that we all went
Yeah.
through, like the global pandemic, the 6 Edensong children in that period of time, and whatever else that delayed this album. By the time we were ready with the tracks to him, unfortunately he was back in the zone for, Jethro Tull has released
His own album.
3 albums in the past 3 years, which is amazing. And
He's
I
still
love to see
going. Yeah.
that, yeah. But it unfortunately was not great for us because he was very heads down in that stuff by the time that we actually got the record to him, and we didn't want to, delay further. And these things happen, but I do, yeah, I do secretly, like, wonder what things would have looked like had he actually played on it. And maybe
Maybe the
there's a
future.
chance of
Yeah.
doing exactly. I know. Yeah, I mean he's still going, so it's pretty impressive. I mean he's an extremely
Unbelievable.
impressive, diligent dude. I
All right.
yeah, I
Now,
just don't know how else to say it.
you definitely have the Jethro Tull influence. There's no doubt about it. But on the review for the new album here, Our Road to Dust, I hear a lot of Kansas, and I'm just wondering, are you guys Kansas fans, or is it that?
Yeah,
What do you think about that observation, so to speak?
I mean that's I mean that was cool. That was a cool
I was going to
connection that I
say, I
had
don't
never
think you're
even
going to
thought
say
about.
no, deny it, or anything like
Yeah, I mean, I do like Kansas for sure, and but I'm not overly familiar with their body of work. Like um, I could name Left Overture, Point of
that. I
No
was going to say, I
Return,
hope you've
you
heard Left
know,
Overture.
yeah,
Yeah,
so there are a few like Kansas albums that I've definitely heard, but I am not familiar with their catalog the way that I am with a lot of other like classic rock bands. But they're awesome. Like they're Kansas is like always that like melodic forward, you know I don't know, soaring, wonderful classic progressive rock. So I mean I'm certainly happy with that comparison,
and I
even if it
definitely
wasn't
love
like,
that about them, but I also love the history they bring. Again, if you go back through their old catalog, it's like a tour through the old West, and that's why I related, especially your title track, to a lot of some of Kansas's big, long, um, which I can't name right off the top of my head right now. But if you go through their catalog, they have a few songs that just, you know, take you through the West and how the West
yeah,
was.
I mean it's probably time
But
that I
they're,
revisit some of that music for sure. Yeah, I mean very epic,
yeah.
very epic.
So let's talk about. You've also, speaking of touring, you've also supported some fairly huge bands. So you're definitely, there's a lot of people out there that also respect you as well as the. Do you want to talk about any of that, or jump right
Yeah, so most of the opportunities we've had to play with the larger bands have been at the Prague festivals. So, we've played quite a number of them at this point and, feel very fortunate to have um, gotten our start sort of in the festival circuit, I guess, over 15 years ago at this point. And, have typically done a few around each of the album releases. So yeah, I mean, we've crossed paths with some like really heavy hitters and yeah, in this genre. So it's been really nice to get to like, meet some of our
Yeah.
musical heroes and yeah, and support that support that scene, support those artists. It's been cool.
All right. The album opens with Of Accents, which is just beautiful acoustic guitar. Um, and talk a little bit about that. And um, this, for me, was sort of that beginning of that Western look, but it doesn't have to be West, it could be East as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that
Fire, I
is
think of it as a fireside song, but
no, I mean you hit the nail on the head, I think. I think that's what we were envisioning also, sort of like we had to picture, I mean you could probably tell from like the album artwork or something or the like the photo that we've, the press photo, but
yeah.
we intend yeah, the album to us sort of like evoked that Western landscape, even though that is not where we are from. But the we tried intentionally for like the album photo shoot, we tried to find a location that had that vibe the most that we could find in the Northeast near us, within a like hour or two drive. So
Where
like it
was
was
it?
definitely on our mind.
Where was
It
it?
was
Because
this
I
abandoned.
thought you went to like Arizona or somewhere.
Yeah, I mean it's a wild place. It's this abandoned quarry up in Cold Spring, New York, and it's like, everything is lush and green, and then you like
Yeah.
walk up this trail and it's just I don't know, it's just like uh weird wasteland almost. Like it's like all the trees are dead and like it's just these like big yeah, rock formations and it's a very cool place.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know why it is like that. I mean, probably because like it was mined. But yeah, it's a really interesting place. I had no idea it existed before we started scouting for locations, and then it's like, wow, this place is, you know, special, perfect for this. But yeah, back to the music. So yeah, of a sense, I think I'm trying to piece this together, like in terms of where I think we had written a number of songs for the album prior to writing of a sense, but that is I had the idea of like starting the album in a contemplative sort of
Yeah.
to me it resembles a hymn, and it was intentionally
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
written with chorale harmonization in that sort of like churchy
Yeah.
style. To me, even the subject matter, like I had actually set text from Psalm of Ascents, to which sort of like matched the traveling theme of the album. So I actually like set religious text to this vocal melody, which turned into a guitar melody. It was like, a big transformation in the process, but that was always part of it. Like it was always intended to be like a 4-part acoustic guitar intro, but I wanted it to be sort of, I guess Barry, our flute player, had at one point mentioned the fact that we never have any music in major keys. I mean, that's probably a lot of metal bands do not have music in major keys, but it was sort of like inspiring me to like, okay, well, I'll do something like the most, quintessentially major. And it, yeah, I guess it was like our our version of like, a classic metal or prog album, acoustic album opener, where it's like this like really serene acoustic passage going into some like crazy heavy um frenetic piece. That yeah, it was sort of like, okay, that's been done before, but this is our way of doing it. It's a little weirder, a little less expected, maybe. I mean, we really tried to like, both both stuff on like either end of that transition. We tried to like, you know, put our own spin on for sure. Uh,
No, no, it was excellent. And then the illusion of permanence, you jump right into that Jethro Tull sound. Again, I shouldn't say that, but it has that feeling and that power of some of the, excuse me, the old stuff, the minstrel in the gallery, things that I remember and grew up with. But the title, and no, I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it. It's too late. The illusion of permanence, it had that sound to it of the absence of presence. And I know there are different meanings and everything, but it just had that feeling to it anyway. But so anyway, what's the question? The question is talk a little bit about the illusion of permanence. We all think that this is permanent, and is that what you're
yeah.
thinking, or go and
Yeah.
after all
So
you've been through, and that you had mentioned earlier, that might be the subject of this. But go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to Google the absence of presence. But now I see that that is a Kansas album. And yeah, to your point,
That was their
I guess that
comeback
is
album.
one of the albums. Yeah, that's one of the ones that I don't know actually. So but cool. That's I'll add it to the listening queue. Um,
That
but yeah,
song
with
in
the
particular is like your long songs. It's really good.
oh,
But
nice.
anyway,
That's awesome. Um, yeah, so I guess there was a lot of stuff like weighing on my mind when we started to work on this album, and sort of reluctantly so. Like as I mentioned, I wasn't quite ready to start doing it, but there were a few themes that were sort of like bouncing around in my head, and you know they're pretty personal to me, like sort of the but surrounding on like the struggle to sort of make art, both like um in terms of like the personal pressure of trying to like create something meaningful and something that like the world will find worthwhile, and that I will find worthwhile personally, but also um the there's a lot of like sacrifice, personal sacrifice, and sort of like I don't know, sacrifice of like close relationships and like the people around me. Like in order to like keep doing this thing, I feel like it's an undue burden on, my loved ones. And so I think that I was thinking a lot about that, sort of the like the why is it so important to me to keep doing this? And I think that like a lot of the songs stemmed from that question. I think that like Hall of Statues is very related to that theme. I wanted to be the sculptor, but instead I just scrubbed the stones. That to me was a reflection on the process of like making the Years in the Garden of Years album, which was such this like monumental, like large scale work, that most of it was so slow moving that most of the time I felt like just sort of like, yeah, I was like polishing one stone at a time, versus like building something. And I think that was from a place of frustration. I think the illusion of permanence is more focused on the band, the like the why we get up and continue to make music when it makes no logical sense whatsoever. It's not something that's particularly like financially sustainable, though we found ways to make it work. But and it's something that's like hard for the people around us, and there's just something about it to this, and I've rediscovered it recently, and it's become so important to me, and I know that the other guys in the band feel similarly. It's like at these challenging personal times, like to have music in our lives is something that we are so appreciative of. And like, I think we've all delved into sort of the whys that of yeah, why we're doing this, why we're on this Don Quixote quest, as I
I love that
say in the
phrase.
lyrics. Yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of what it's about.
All right. These Old Wounds is, I think, the debut of TD, his lead singing, and there's other tracks on the song that he sings. Was that he wanted to sing more, or you guys wanted something, additional, a different kind of sound? And talk
Well,
about that,
yeah.
and then talk about These Old Wounds, and then I got one more thing about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So TD or Ben is his secret identity. And I'll probably just refer to him as Ben because that is how I have known him since we were both 5 years old. But for whatever reason, when we started, he's been on every Edensong recording, I think. Yeah, he was the bassist going back to our debut album, The Fruit Fallen. We played together in a band that predated Edensong, but for whatever reason, probably for his like indie rock cred, he was in like, he didn't want to you know sully his name with a progressive rock project or something, but he went by the name TD Towers pretty early on, and we've just like rolled with
All
it
right.
for the purpose of Edensong. But he is a very interesting voice, and he's always been a singer, and like he has a lot of other projects where he is the primary vocalist and primary songwriter. And I think when we moved to a quartet, there was a lot more room for his musical voice and songwriting voice to come into Edensong. I think that it was yeah, and like honestly, I think the album thrives in his like ideas. I think that he brought a lot of like fresh ideas to the table, and like, These Old Wounds was a song that's sort of just like, so I guess like he doesn't really like in all of his various like songwriter projects, where he is the like main guy. Um they don't have the rock, it's not the same there. He does not have the outlet for the heaviness, and I think that that was important to him to have that outlet. So I think he was like ready. I think it was just sort of a convergence. It had just happened to be the right time to start. He was wanting to contribute some like more from a songwriting perspective. The band was like ready for his contributions in a way that it hadn't been before, because sometimes I come to the table with like a full album's worth of like conceptual ideas and, have an album mapped out. And this time I really didn't. I had 3 songs that I wanted to, offer up to this record, and there's sort of the 3 we've discussed. And then yeah, so he came to the table with a lot of cool ideas. And These Old Wounds was something that I think we wrote, like I think he wrote it while we were all in the same room together, and just like kept churning out these heavy riffs like one after the next, and just sort of like assembled a song. I think he said like the all of it, came together in like 5 minutes. Of course, it was a lot of like sculpting and refining from those pieces, and like collaborative in developing some of the material around it. Like, I helped develop the vocal melodies in certain parts of it, and added my own vocals and stuff, but it's all based on like seed ideas that sort of like flew out of his brain, sort of more or less fully formed. um yeah, and we reassembled it that way. But it's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a very different. I don't know. In some ways, I feel like it lives perfectly well along, in the Edensong world, and like, resembles some of the maybe older music with the flow of like from the Fruit Fallen era. But there's also something very fresh about it, and like, a little like more overtly like heavy and straightforward and rocking about it that I really enjoy also. And plus his voice is just so different from
All
mine
right.
that I feel like that adds like, a cool thing too.
All right. And you definitely have a lot of the flute. player has a lot of influence from um, Ian Anderson and Jethro Tull, but there's also another side to him, and I don't know how much you know about the band Traffic, but on this particular song, there's a part of it where it actually sounds a little bit. No, I know you're not copying. I'm not saying that, but it reminded me of the song Rainmaker. And do you guys are you influenced at all with Traffic? Do you know anything about Traffic? Because I'll be honest, until about 20 or some years ago, when Steve Winwood finally went out and did his solo stuff, that's when I found out about Traffic. I mean, I knew about Steve Winwood, you know, since his start, but really didn't know that much about Traffic. Then I got into it. I bought every single album I loved. They're one of my favorite
Nice.
English bands. But have you heard of any Traffic? And if you haven't,
Yeah,
definitely check out Rainmaker and
cool.
see if I'm off.
No, I'm gonna have to check it out because I have not. I don't know any Traffic. I mean, I certainly know the name, and I know
Sure.
Steve Winwood the name, but like I've not yeah, I've not really gotten into the music. So that's another one for the listening queue, I think.
So
You're
you weren't influenced at all, or maybe the flute player was. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even.
Yeah, I mean, he tends to be influenced from a lot of stuff outside of progressive rock. I mean, he came from like a punk and metal background,
Oh, wow.
and also, yeah. So he's not like a particular Jethro Tull fan or anything. I think probably he's had to learn to appreciate Jethro Tull, probably in the context of Edensong, because I'm such a huge Jethro Tull fan, and so I think he's probably in Edensong by virtue of the fact that I was such a huge Jethro Tull fan that I wanted, a full-time flute player or something crazy. But yeah, he has a really interesting, yeah, non-prog background, punk, metal, avant-garde, like new music. He's a pretty accomplished, like classical composer, but like,
Wow.
so yeah,
Okay.
so I'm not sure. I'll definitely mention it to him too. I'm not sure if that's on his influence list or not.
All right. Then Black Crow opens with what I compared to a Fleet Foxes. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I do know Fleet Foxes. They're very
Fan
cool.
or
Yeah, I'm not, I mean, I would not say a particular fan,
yeah, and I'm not
but
saying
I've,
you copied them or anything like that. Everyone, I mean, going all the way back to well, that's not the one I was thinking of, but Earth, Wind and Fire, but Fleetwood Mac, and
yeah.
the band I can't think of right now, but all of them have had that vocal.
Yeah, no, Fleet Foxes are
Crosby,
cool. And I
Stills,
think
there we
like,
go.
oh yeah,
Crosby,
yeah.
Stills, and Nash. I mean, they're the classic, so to speak.
And you are not the
Primary voice.
only, you're not the only reviewer to make that like Fleet Foxes connection, which I hadn't
Oh,
thought about prior, but I think it makes sense because I think like part of what I was drawn to in the Fleet Foxes was probably how much it sounded like Ben singing. So,
oh, okay.
because Ben I feel like has always had that vocal style, like since he's been doing his solo stuff, probably going back 20 years at this point. But that's sort of like that's sort of like breathy, multi-layered vocal harmonization, I feel like has always been a hallmark of his. So it feels cool to finally like import that into the context of Eden Song, which and that particular song actually was one that he was developing for a solo record that I was producing. And I don't know, I heard it going in a lot of different directions, and I think pretty like heavily shaped that song into the point that we we decided to port it over here instead.
Yeah,
And I don't know, I've always felt very passionately about that tune. I've always loved
it's a good song.
that
Yeah.
song. So I think, yeah, eventually it found its home here, because a bunch of that material went onto different records. It never got released in its initially conceived form. It was initially like conceived as a like a vocal, like an a cappella record, like where he's doing all of the instrumentation with his
Oh wow.
voice. And yeah, it never saw the light of day in that form, but the all of the songs have now found a permanent home on either Ben Ben Records, which is like what you know, or Sincere Gifts Records, which is the monikers that he uses for his like solo stuff, or the Edensong album. I think Book of Complaints also came from that. Those sessions where these were developed like a cappella and then you know heavily you know further developed by the band once they wound up in the Edensong universe. Yeah, but yeah.
Okay, Hall of Statues, excellent song. It is, I think it was the first single, first video, and now you've come out with a second video. Uh, will you hopefully do one for the epic closer, the title track? And tell us a little bit about what video making and it's a costly, time consuming, but for the fans, we love them, and yours are
Yeah,
good, good videos.
that's cool. I'm glad to hear that yeah, that those are effective because I never know like whether people watch those or would rather just listen to the music or
No,
but I think it
no,
was
yeah,
helpful coming out of the gate, especially since we haven't done stuff in a while to try and get some attention with videos. So I haven't been involved in the I mean with the Hall of Statues video, we worked with Shelby to sort of develop the concepts and knew sort of like visually how we wanted it to look, the themes and everything. But yeah, she developed that. I think she did a great job with that, with the Book of Complaints video. That
Book of
was
Complaints is
Wayne
the second one,
Joyner
yeah.
and like yeah, and that was cool to that we had, you know, I may have like sent him a few word descriptions of like what the, you know, conceptually like the, I'm like library in the woods, you know, crazy library in the woods or something like that, you know,
Yeah.
some like incomprehensible collection of words, and he totally rolled with that and developed something wild. But he's, you know, he does this stuff. That's what, you know, he's done, worked with everyone from like Yes to Dream Theater to I don't know. Yeah. So he just did his thing and sent us a video you know, a week later or whatever. But the it's cool to yeah, cool to hear that those are being well received. I don't know that we'll do one for the title track just because it's a long song and it's one that has already been out and promoted and like, you know, that was the first single we released for the record. So I think they're probably like better ways to sort of approach the like market
Okay.
remaining marketing push for this record. You know, there's I very rarely think practically in these terms. You know, I'm just sort of like driven by my heart and like sort of like artistic inclination to like do whatever I want to do in that moment. But when it comes to like doing stuff like videos and like, you know, content that's not the song itself, then I do get sort of into like, you know, okay, what's, you know, we have limited resources here. What's the most effective way we can utilize that?
One, Wicker Basket. I think that's what you meant by it.
You're the
But it's
first person to
although,
get that right.
oh, really? Okay. And it was spelled a little differently, which is cool. Tell us about the origin of that. And it is, and you know, you're listening to his whole album, and you know, you're concentrating on all those big singles and things like that. And then along comes this one. It's like, oh my God, this is a fantastic song. You know, and you normally a fan might just bypass this, jump to the final track, but don't do that. It is a great song.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that called out a few times, that tune. And actually that might be a cool one to do a visualizer for. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know. Like a lot of people are into like instrumental prog and don't like the vocal thing, so it might be good to try and, you know, promote that song a little harder in those circles. But that was actually when I mentioned to Barry that there was a chance that Ian Anderson would play on this record, Barry went and wrote
Oh,
that song as sort of like a, epic flute duet or flute duel, where he had it conceived as like two flute solo sections. And yeah, that the initial riff for that song was one that I wrote on Portuguese guitar, which is
oh,
an
cool.
instrument that was new to me that I discovered on my honeymoon and bought one in Portugal. And that's a wonderful, inspiring instrument. And the
Yeah,
riff to Wicker Basket was the first thing that came out of my hands when I picked up that instrument. But, not knowing what I was doing, I still don't know what I'm doing. But that was the first riff to come out. So like I didn't know what to do with it. And I sent it to Barry, who, sometimes, yeah, takes my ideas and twists them around and comes up with some really, I mean, he wrote that like epic middle section to Our Road to Dust also, where with all the developments, a lot of the unconventional
yeah,
development ideas come from Barry. But so this was he really like developed the meat of the piece from that initial guitar riff. And then like, it felt like we needed to kick things into gear at the end. And, that's where I came back in and developed some of like that heavy like metal riffage at the end. But yeah, I love how that came out. And it is not a flute duet. It is now a violin and flute duet with Chris
yeah.
Baum from Bent Knee. He's
And
awesome. I mean, he's so
kind
so
of
great.
it's kind of that thing that I've been talking about, the Kansas uh, Jethro Tull battle. I mean, and I love it. I
That's
absolutely
so cool. Yeah, and
love that battle.
Chris plays again, which is the other section where we had initially wanted Ian Anderson to play, which is the end of Our Road to Dust. Chris comes back and like plays some beautiful, beautiful like
Yeah,
improvised lines over the ending section of that song. And I really think that that's so much of what like makes that section. So to get him on the record was really a privilege. I really don't know if he's even heard the record. I really
wow,
should send it to him.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we do these collaborations, and these guys are just so busy with so many different projects and stuff that like, this is something that happened sort of years ago. And yeah, I feel like yeah, we haven't spoken recently, but I got to get that music to him.
all right, then let's talk about the Road to Dust. It is un, unbelievable. I really do think it's a classic worthy of some of the famous Kansas or Jethro Tull albums. Um, it I hope other people respect it the way I do. It just really puts everything together and really accents all of your talents. Talk about
Yeah.
how that came to being, because it must have taken a lot of effort, and sometimes these things just come to you and you're like, yeah, that's going to be the title track.
I mean, thank you so much. I mean, that is also a song that's like near and dear to my heart. I think that I felt that from the first time that uh yeah, I heard it start to come together. I don't know, there's just something about that like vocal melody in it. Rarely start with a vocal melody, but this is another case of just something sort of like popping into my head. I think I was driving in upstate New York going to a job, and this like that vocal melody just like popped into my head. And um I didn't think much of it. I like pulled over to the side of the road and recorded into my voice memo, and then didn't have any particular ideas for it. But when we started writing the record, it was I go through my like voice memos and see if I have any ideas, or like sometimes I'll take video of guitar riffs or something that I think are cool and stash them away for later. But yeah, there's just something that like caught my attention. It was like very unusual for Edensong because we're not a band that has like sing along choruses and stuff like that. So um yeah, it was, but this felt like something that really had to be that, like it had
Yeah,
to exist in this form that I had initially like sung it into like the voice memo. That was just how it was like meant to be. So I tried to like honor that sort of tendency of it and just like go with it and try to build a song with that being the seed. And I think that like um yeah, Ben helped to develop a lot of the initial like the guitar. I think the verse guitar chords similarly just flew out of his head. There it was the it felt pretty effortless. There was a lot of like obviously there's always a lot of work that goes into these songs, but there was not fighting any battles here. There was nothing we were really pushing against with this whole album, really. Like with the exception of like maybe Book of Complaints, which because it was such a concise song. There was some I think we fought the initial like poppy tendency of it a little bit to make it a little weirder and a little proggier, and it just didn't work that way. So we embraced it. We just embraced it as the song that it is, and I'm really happy with that how that came out. But otherwise, I feel like we just sort of we didn't do a lot of like pushing against the grain with any of this stuff. It was like we wanted to pretty much just like carry through in the way that it was initially intended because we fought a lot of battles with Years in the Garden of Years, and it was a constant sort of like sculpting and
Yeah.
so much like work that went into that to have everything like meticulously cleaned up and like
Sometimes,
presented. Yeah.
sometimes you just put together a dust in the wind. That's what I do. It's a
Yeah, and that
it's a modern dust in the wind, and I hope people respect it and listen to it in that way.
yeah,
And
thank
again,
you.
I don't want to influence people, but if you haven't heard, and I don't know how good, but if you haven't heard Dust in the Wind, those of you that are listening, go back and listen to it, and then listen to this.
Yeah.
No, they didn't copy them. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, but you can feel the same kind of sort of vibe. And just again, we've been talking about this east-west thing. I, being from the west, I see this Oregon Trail kind of, and you talked about some of the frustration and challenges that you guys have gone through. Well, those people did too, and trying to get out west and trying to rebuild their lives, rebuild in this so-called paradise where they were told that there was a paradise they were going to, and there was nothing but trauma trying to get there. But that's the other part that kind of reminded me of what you were saying earlier about the last album, but also you can see that through this album, some of the things that you guys talked about.
Yeah.
And I thought you were sort of comparing it to those, but maybe I was wrong.
No, I mean, I think that that's pretty spot on. And Dust in the Wind is interesting. I wondered if by putting dust in the title,
That
that we
might have been
were drawing that as an overt reference. But it wasn't that we were necessarily
right.
thinking about that song, but that's a great song. I love
Yeah,
Dust in the Wind. Um, but no, I think you're spot on with like the evocative quality of that tune and sort of like what it makes you think of. I think lyrically, that's what I was like going for in terms of like that journey aspect and the Western landscapes and everything was what I was going for lyrically with the song without it actually being a song about,
right.
traveling. It's really, you know, it's not so much a song about traveling. It's an introspective tune. And I
Yeah,
think it's again in that same theme that we discussed about, this concept of the band and the brotherhood of the band and this journey making music together and looking at sort of life passing. Like it's
yeah.
another we did a concept album about time, but it's hard to not reflect further on time as we're like a decade older now.
Getting older. Yeah,
And time's still moving.
it is.
And there are people who we've lost over those intervening years, and things get harder to do, and we're still traveling that dusty road, I suppose, and trying to make things happen. And yeah, I don't know. But I'm glad that you see that stuff lyrically too, and in the music, because I think that that is what we were trying to evoke. It's just not the like central like theme,
All right. Now we've come to the time, speaking of time traveling, uh,
Yeah.
where I ask you, is there anything that I've missed? Anything that you want to talk about? Anything you guys want to finish up with? I've run out of questions. I mean, the only thing that I ask, not from you, but from other people, is give this thing a chance. If you listen to this album, you can't, especially people my age that, listen to all these albums that we've been talking about. If you don't hear resonance from them and that feeling, and more importantly, the quality that those people put into their music, and now what Edensong is doing, they're putting a lot of quality into this music, and there just isn't that amount of quality music out there. And so when you get something like this, please appreciate it. Not just me, but everyone.
Yeah,
But
thank you
I'm
so
sorry,
much.
I
Yeah.
started talking, but any questions that you have? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's great to finally connect with you. I know we've been like chatting over the years. I mean, mostly around the time
Yeah,
that Years in the Garden of Years came out, and we were so thankful for your really thoughtful review of that album. And I'm just like really glad that this album has connected with you also, because
yeah,
this
definitely.
is the first time, I've ever really been self-conscious about like putting a workout into the world, like, and really just not knowing what people will think of it. I think that yeah, and it's cool. It's also funny because I feel like overall this is probably the album of ours that has gotten the best reception out of the gate. So it's interesting. I don't know. It's just really nice to hear, your thoughts about the record, and your reflections on the music and your analysis, and like it's really, as an artist, it's cool to have these conversations and finally connect with you and be able to have this chat about the music. So thank you for that.
No, no, you're more than welcome. And that was probably another question I missed. So it definitely has been getting a lot of attention. I mean, I've seen that on Facebook, but you're telling me that uh, maybe I don't want to use the word selling well, but uh, definitely people are coming out and have an interest in this. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been very I never set my expectations high because this is like progressive rock, and it's a very niche thing, and like we are an unknown band, and it's I've been doing this long enough that I know not to expect too much. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's just my like getting older and getting more jaded, and just like losing some like confidence. I've just like so gung-ho in my youth that I knew I was like putting together like a masterpiece or something. That was like my goal, like with Years in the
Well,
Garden of Years, was just to like craft something huge. But I don't know, this just felt yeah, I was just unsure about whether we were going to lose people along the way, because like I there are a lot of yeah, there we have like some dedicated fans who've been with us a long time and really supportive of the music, and I want to make sure that the music continues to speak to them as we evolve. Like I think that this is the album that we wanted to make now, and I think that we try to be progressive in the sense of progress and not in the sense of genre. Like we're not I guess we are like prog because we at least I grew up listening to that stuff, and I'm very just like influenced by the stuff of the 70s and stuff. But I think we as a band strive for being progressive in like the sense of evolving and changing from record to record. And I'm glad that this album is both like continuing to speak to the people who have been there along the way for us. And I am also happy that it's finding a lot of new people. And that's been very gratifying to like,
And
um,
I
to
hope you
see.
pick up the Kansas fans. I really hope so. I hope
Yeah.
they give this a chance and see what I'm been talking about, or hear, not
Yeah.
see, hear what I've been talking about. Pull them in as well. They're desperately waiting for a new album. They've had with that band, they've had a few really tough situations happening. So this this will satisfy you temporarily until that comes out. But like I say, there's a lot on here to really appreciate. Both Jethro Tull, Kansas, or like he said, progressive rock, Traffic fans. I mean, there's a little bit of everything in here, and please give it a chance. And that's all you'll need to do. If you hear that, the final epic song, I don't know how you can't get pulled into this album.
Yeah.
If
Thank
you're
you.
still a prog fan, if and this song doesn't attract you, I don't know. Maybe you've moved away from prog because it is to me it's
It
the best
happens.
already.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Anything else you want to add, or
No, I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the time. And yeah, I'm hoping I'm hoping it won't take 8 years for the next record, basically. I'm hoping we
oh
can dive
yeah,
back into something.
and yeah, I probably should have said that. You said that you're already working on songs, or
No, not we haven't gotten there yet, but we're starting to think about working on songs.
oh
So
good.
it's yeah, the future, it's an open book, blank page. Yeah, ready to start on whatever comes next, whether that's more shows or start on some more writing or combination of the two, where we'll figure that out soon. But we're all enthused and like ready to keep on doing this. The Yeah, response has been
But
great.
no concept for the album yet. It's too early.
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely too early. Yeah.
Well,
And I'm
great.
not sure we'll start
Well,
with the title this time around. Or
yeah,
maybe we will. I don't
definitely.
know.
Please send it to me. You know that I'd love to review that one as well. Uh, Thanks again, James, for everything. This is a wonderful way to spend your holiday. That's all of us here in the U.S. are on holiday, and he's taking time out of his holiday. I'm doing the same, and it was well every minute. And thank you very much for
Yeah, no, I love doing it. So
everything you
thanks
do.
so much for having me. Yeah, cool. All right. Take
All right,
care.
hold
Thank
on.
you so much.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
just hold on. I'm gonna pause the recording. We can just say
Yep.
goodbye. All right, but hey, Edensong, Our Road to Dust. Give it a listen. All right.